The video opens in complete darkness. No sound, no movement, no context. The screen stays black long enough to feel slightly uncomfortable, long enough for the viewer to wonder if the video is broken or if their internet froze. Then, slowly, an image fades in. A wide shot of dry soil. The ground is cracked, pale, exhausted. The color is almost gray, like all life has been drained out of it. The texture is sharp and rough, with deep fractures running in random directions, like veins in a body that no longer carries blood. The camera does not move. It simply observes. There is no music yet. Only a very faint sound of wind, distant and thin, barely touching the surface. Dust slides slowly across the cracks. Nothing else moves. The frame holds longer than normal. Long enough to be uncomfortable. Long enough to force attention. The camera cuts closer. Now the viewer sees the soil in extreme detail. Individual grains, tiny stones, dead fragments of roots that look more like bones than plants. A piece of a dried leaf lies half buried, curled into itself. Silence returns for a moment. Then a low-frequency sound begins to appear, almost invisible to the ear. Not music, not a melody, more like pressure. A deep vibration, slow and heavy, similar to the sound you feel in your chest rather than here. The camera starts moving forward, very slowly, almost floating, staying only a few centimeters above the ground. It glides over the cracks like something searching, scanning, inspecting. The soil looks endless, every patch the same, dry, empty, hostile. The wind increases slightly, pushing more dust across the surface. Tiny particles bounce, collide, disappear into the cracks. Another cut. Now the camera looks straight down from above. The soil fills the entire frame. No horizon, no sky, just texture. It almost looks like the surface of another planet. A shadow passes over it. Soft, slow, probably a cloud, but the source is never shown. Light fades, then returns. The low-frequency sound fades out again. Only the wind remains. The camera cuts to another close-up. A dead insect lies half buried in the dirt. Its body is stiff, fragile, hollow. The legs are broken. The wings are dust. Nothing touches it. Nothing reacts. The camera lingers on it longer than necessary. Then another cut. A different patch of soil. A broken root, pale and cracked, sticking out of the ground like a bone fragment from an old grave. Still nothing moves. The sound design becomes almost empty again. Then, slowly, the low vibration returns. One pulse. Then another. Slow, heavy, distant. The camera moves again, drifting across the surface, following the cracks as if they are paths. Time feels stretched. No text appears. No explanation. No guidance. Only the ground. The viewer begins to understand something without being told. This place is not dead, but it is close to it. The light changes slightly. The sun moves behind clouds. Shadows stretch across the soil. The temperature feels different even though nothing is said. The camera stops moving. The frame holds. 10 seconds. Nothing happens. The wind slowly disappears. The vibration fades out. The image darkens gradually, not fully black, but enough that the details of the soil begin to disappear, turning into abstract shapes, then into darkness. The screen finally becomes black again. No sound, no movement. The first part ends without resolution, without answers, without comfort. Only the idea that this ground is empty. And waiting. The black screen holds for a moment longer than expected. Silence. Then a sound breaks it. A single drop of water hitting dry soil. Sharp, close, real. The image appears instantly. An extreme close-up of the impact point. The soil explodes outward in tiny particles as the drop collapses into the ground. Dust lifts into the air and disappears. The surface darkens where the water touched, forming a small irregular stain. No music, only the faint echo of the drop. The camera does not move. The wet spot slowly spreads outward as the soil absorbs the moisture, pulling it inward like a dry sponge. The edges of the stain crawl across the dirt in slow motion. Another drop falls. A second dark circle appears, merging with the first. The sound design introduces the low vibration again. Very subtle, slow, a distant pulse. Cut to a wider shot. The ground is still mostly dry, but scattered dark marks appear where water has fallen. The rain is sparse, irregular, unpredictable. Each drop is clearly audible. The field does not change quickly. It resists. Cut. The camera is now underground. The world is narrow and compressed. Walls of soil surround the frame on all sides. Tiny grains fall as water begins to penetrate deeper, carving microscopic paths through compacted layers. Water flows slowly through invisible channels. The sound changes, muffled, thicker, as if heard through heavy walls. Small air bubbles escape from the soil as water pushes into old empty spaces. Something moves, barely noticeable. A thin filament bends as water touches it. Another filament reacts. A fungal thread expands slightly, almost breathing. The vibration grows stronger, now synchronized with these tiny movements. Pulse, pause, pulse. Cut to another underground angle. A fragile root tip is visible in the darkness. White, soft, almost transparent. It is completely still. Water reaches it. The surface of the root becomes glossy. It swells by a fraction, then stops. Time slows further. The root pushes forward almost imperceptibly, displacing a few grains of soil. Resistance holds it back. It pushes again. 2 grains fall. That is all. Cut back to the surface. Rain continues. Still light, still careful. The soil darkens unevenly. Some areas remain pale and cracked, others become soft and heavy. Steam rises faintly where cold water meets warm ground. The cracks begin to lose their sharp edges. They do not disappear, but they soften, like old scars. The camera tilts upward. The sky is gray. Thick clouds move slowly, heavy with water. No dramatic storm, no thunder, just persistence. Cut. A close-up of the same dead insect from part 1. A drop of water hits beside it. The body does not move, but the soil around it darkens. The ground accepts the water even if life does not. Cut. Another drop hits near the broken root. The pale surface absorbs moisture. The color deepens slightly. The root does not revive, but the soil around it changes. The vibration becomes clearer, deeper, stronger. The pulse is slower now, more confident. The rain increases slightly, not enough to flood, enough to matter. Cut to black. The sound of rain continues for a few seconds without image, then slowly fades out. Silence returns. The second part ends with the sense that something has begun. Not visibly, not dramatically, but irreversibly. The image returns in darkness, but this time it is not empty. Shapes slowly appear as the exposure increases. We are underground again. The soil is darker now, heavier, structured. Layers are visible, compressed by years of weight. Water moves slowly through thin channels, reflecting minimal light. The sound is muffled, deep, enclosed. The low vibration returns immediately. Stronger than before, it is no longer distant. It feels close. The fungal filaments seen earlier are now more visible. They stretch in multiple directions, forming fragile networks that connect different parts of the soil. Some of them pulse gently as water flows past. Roots extend slowly from thicker structures, branching into thinner and thinner lines. Nothing moves fast, everything moves with intention. The vibration synchronizes with these movements. Pulse, roots advance, pause, water flows, pulse, connections form. Cut to a time-lapse sequence. The underground world begins to reorganize itself. Small cavities collapse as water softens their walls. New tunnels open, particles shift, slide, lock into new positions. Fungal threads wrap around tiny stones, anchoring themselves. Roots change direction when they meet resistance, splitting into smaller paths. The soil is not static. It is a machine made of living fragments. Cut to the surface. The field looks different now. Darker, heavier. The cracks that dominated the first part are smaller, less aggressive. Some have closed completely. The same wide frame from the beginning is repeated. Same angle, same distance, same composition, but not the same ground. The wind passes. Dust no longer rises as easily. The soil holds itself together. A small movement appears near the center of the frame. Almost invisible, a thin green point pushes upward between 2 softened cracks. It stops. The vibration grows stronger. Another pulse. The green point moves again. It breaks the surface. A fragile stem bends under its own weight. Wind touches it. It leans, but it does not fall. The sound design changes slightly. A new layer appears. A subtle harmonic tone, organic, unstable, like something trying to stay in tune with itself. Cut to an extreme macro shot. Inside the stem, liquid moves slowly through transparent channels. Light passes through thin tissue, scattering into soft green tones. Cells divide, walls stretch, life organizes itself. Cut to a wider shot of the field. The landscape is still mostly brown. Still rough, still hostile, but small green points now appear in multiple places. Scattered, random, like distant stars on a dark surface. The vibration accelerates slightly. The pulse becomes closer together. The field is no longer quiet. It is working. Cut to underground one last time. Roots multiply. Threads connect. Water recedes slowly from some areas, but the structure remains. The system holds. The vibration reaches its strongest point. Then suddenly stops. Cut to black. One final pulse is heard. Then silence. The third part ends with the sense that the ground is no longer empty. It is active, hidden, busy, alive. The image returns slowly, flooded with soft light. Sunrise. A wide shot of the field from a distance. Mist floats low above the ground, thin and quiet, moving like breath. The horizon is pale orange, diluted by clouds that filter the sun into something gentle and indirect. The soil is no longer gray. It is dark brown, heavy, alive. Small green lines are now visible across the surface. Not enough to dominate the landscape, but enough to change its meaning. The sound design shifts. The deep vibration becomes distant again, buried under layers of wind and space. Air moves across the plants. Leaves tremble slightly. Stems bend. Nothing breaks. The camera floats forward slowly, just above the ground, following the natural curves of the field. No machines. No humans. No fences. Only land in movement. Close up, a leaf vibrates as wind passes over it. Tiny particles of moisture evaporate into the air. Another close-up, soil between two plants rises and falls almost imperceptibly as temperature changes push air out of microscopic pockets underground. It looks like breathing. The camera holds on this movement, long enough to feel intentional. Time lapse begins. Shadows stretch across the field as the sun climbs higher. Clouds slide over the light, darkening and brightening the ground in slow cycles. Plants grow, not dramatically, but measurably. Leaves expand, stems straighten. The field reorganizes itself into patterns, invisible lines shaped by roots, water, and gravity. Sound becomes fuller. Wind layers, distant birds, barely audible. Not a song, just proof of space. The day advances. The light hardens. Soft orange becomes pale white. Moisture lifts from the soil. Steam fades. The ground begins to dry again. Slowly, the color shifts. Dark brown to lighter brown. Texture sharpens. Cracks begin to suggest themselves again, faint lines forming where water once filled space. Cut underground. Water levels drop in some channels. Movement slows. Fungal threads retreat slightly deeper. Roots remain. They do not move back. They hold their position. They anchor. The vibration returns quietly. Slower now. Heavier. Not a heartbeat. More like pressure building. Cut to the surface. Wind grows stronger. Dust begins to move again in thin lines. Not a storm. Not destruction. Just memory repeating itself. The field stands between two states. Life visible. Death approaching. The camera stops moving. The frame holds. Long. Uncomfortable. The sound becomes thinner. Wind dominates. The vibration fades into almost nothing. The fourth part ends without resolution. Only tension. Balance. Waiting. The frame returns to the exact same position as the beginning of the video. Same angle. Same distance. Same patch of land. At first glance, it looks identical. Dry soil. Cracks. Pale color. Silence. Wind moves slowly across the surface, dragging thin lines of dust through the fractures. The sound design is minimal again. Only air. No vibration. No pulse. No movement beyond dust. The ground looks dead, but it is not the same ground. One of the cracks holds something new. A thin dark line that was not there before. The remains of a stem, or a seed shell, or a scar left by life. It is small, easy to miss. The camera does not point at it directly. It simply exists inside the frame. The viewer either notices it or does not. The wind stops. Complete stillness. 10 seconds pass. Nothing happens. The soil does not move. The light does not change. Time feels suspended. Then the low-frequency vibration returns. Very faint. One pulse. Silence. Another pulse. The camera remains frozen. The sound of a single water drop is heard again. Sharp. Close. Identical to the one from earlier. The drop hits the ground in the same place as before. The same sound. The same texture. The same motion. The soil darkens slightly where it lands. The frame holds on the impact point. No music. No change in camera. No reaction. Just the mark of water on dust. Freeze for a fraction of a second. Cut to black. All sound stops instantly. No fade. No credits. No explanation. The story does not end. It resets.